everyone. Welcome to the Loudwire podcast. My name is Graham.
And I'm Joe.
And today we have an amazing guest. We always have an amazing guest. Today, Richard Christie from Death, Iced Earth, Charred Walls of the Damned, and of course the Howard Stern Show. Such a legend. We've been looking forward to this one for such a long time. Cannot wait to talk to this dude.
Yeah, and he's one of my favorite drummers. He got me into a lot of metal when I was really early, like my first death metal album with Sound of Perseverance. So like I've been a huge fan of Richard Christie ever since really I started listening to metal, like maybe 1-2 years into it. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
And one of my favorite prank callers of all time. I mean, Joe and I, we actually went to college together. We lived together for 2 years.
All Graham would do was play these prank phone calls. If it wasn't Creed Shreds 3, it was prank phone calls.
It's true. And we would listen to the Tradio pranks and the public access pranks, the majestic triple fur coat washing machine.
Oh my God,
basketball
that one's one of my
hoop
favorites.
call. Just absolutely amazing. We love Richard for so many reasons, so we just had to invite him. So get ready to sit down
and shout. Let it out. Sit down and shout. Look out.
Over-caffeinated, overtired. Let's do it.
All right, Loudwire podcast and Richard Christie from Charred Walls of the Damned, of course, from a lot of other great bands on the Howard Stern Show, as well as here. Thank you so much, Richard, for stopping by.
Thank you guys for having me. Oh, this is awesome, man. You guys got a nice studio. I love this.
Oh, come on. You come from the Howard studio where it's like half of a wing of a building that's like beautifully tailored and filled with horrific memorabilia.
There's not a lot of room for streaking over here.
Don't worry, I'll keep my clothes on.
Thank you.
This is actually, I can't think of anyone else who I've seen naked so many times before I actually met them.
My mother-in-law has seen me naked on TV. So
no. Does that get awkward at times?
No, she's cool. She's really cool. So
as long as it doesn't happen at Thanksgiving.
No, I'm very.
No, that's more of a Sal thing, I think.
I'm a very professional person when I'm not at work.
Of course, the new Charred Walls of the Damned record, Creatures Watching Over the Dead, September 23rd. Make sure to pick that up. And of course, Richard Christie played on one of the greatest death metal albums of all time. Of course, we're talking about Crotch Duster's Big Fat Box of Shit. Which I swear to you, that's one of my Desert Island albums.
That's awesome. You know what's so great about that album is the people that know about it are so hardcore into it. I've never heard anybody who says something like, yeah, I know Crotch Duster, but I just mildly like that album. It's like, if you know Crotch Duster, people freak on that album. And it's the genius of Jason Sukoff, our guitar player in Charred Walls of the Damned. He's hilarious.
He is really funny on that.
I've heard more people sing Mammal Sauce than I've actually heard Mammal Sauce itself.
Oh, he's got to come out with his own, like an actual bottle of Mammal Sauce sometime. I would buy it.
Yeah, I'd buy it.
I don't know what the hell would be in it, but...
Did you play on that, or did you just do that voiceover for that one track?
Yeah, from what I can remember, I was so drunk when I recorded that. 'Cause when I was in Florida, I lived in a storage unit for 8 years because I was just, so into metal. I just wanted to be around my drums all the time, and it was cheap. But there was a fire at our storage facility one night, and so for about 4 months while our storage unit aired out, I had to move in to Jason Sukoff's laundry room, which is where Audio Hammer Studios is now, which is where we record the Charred Walls of the Damned albums. And I just remember him making the Crotch Duster album in bits and pieces. Just, we'd just get drunk and he'd go to the studio and goof around. And just one night I was drunk and he asked me, do an intro, say you're having a Richard Christie beer fest in Dusseldorf, Germany. And so now people mention that to me and I'm like, I kind of remember doing that, but you might need to refresh my memory about what the hell I said at the beginning of that song.
Just welcome to my beer fest. Hope you're having a good time.
That's the gist of it pretty much. Yeah. And then I didn't play on it. I think it was mostly, from what I remember, drum machine, but
Okay.
I don't know that I could have played a lot of that stuff. It's insane.
It was pretty ridiculous.
Oh, it's great. People always are asking him to do another one of those albums.
Yes, please. I didn't. We met someone the other day who like did a voice on that, and I think he put it really well. He put it really well by saying like it's the most beloved metal album that no one has ever bought. like that, and kind of like as to what you're saying, like people just have such love for that album, and just there's so many inside jokes. And so if anyone is listening to this and hasn't heard that Crotch Duster record, just pick it up, give it a few spins, it'll soak into your brain eventually.
Oh, it's a classic. I love it. I gotta have a few beers and refresh my memory on that one again.
The amount of times that me and my friends have sang Mammal Sauce drunk is just doing like the harmonies and stuff.
I've heard it sung more by people than I've actually heard the song.
Doesn't he at the end of it? Doesn't he do like Danzig singing Mammal Sauce
he does,
or something?
Like, oh God, he does like Danzig and then like
My Mammal Sauce, something like that.
And then he does like the douche rock. My Mammal Sauce is the best Mammal Sauce. Like it's. God, I could talk forever.
He's a master of voices, that guy. I remember one night when I think it was while we were doing drums for the newest Charred Walls of the Damned album, we went out and had some drinks, and Jason hardly ever drinks, and he was doing shots of vodka. And when he does shots, he loves doing his voices. He'll do his Danzig. He does an awesome John Tardy from Obituary. He does an awesome Glenn Benton. And so I had him sing I Want Your Sex, but as Glenn Danzig, John Tardy, Glenn Benton, like Dave Mustaine, all these different singers. And it was incredible. It was so freaking funny. I'll have to see if maybe we can put that on YouTube or do a hidden track on the next Charred Walls album with that.
Oh, beautiful. And it's interesting that I was looking through the press release for the Charred Walls record, and you're saying that a lot of the lyrics that you write, being the main lyricist of the band, you try to stay very positive in terms of what you want to write about, which is somewhat odd for metal because a lot of it's about negative things, maybe not for negative reasons, but exploring negative subjects. So what is it about the brighter side of life that inspires you for this kind of thing?
I don't know. I just find, for me, it's easier to write lyrics about things that I love and things that make me happy. Like on our first album, the song Blood on Wood, which a lot of people got a kick out of the title. It sounds a little dirty.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It's thanks. It's actually about one time when I was practicing drums, like actually practicing for the first Charred Walls of the Damned album, and I looked down and a couple of blisters had popped on my hands and my drumsticks were covered in blood, and it just inspired me so much to think, wow, I love this thing of drumming so much that I'm willing to bleed for it. So it's things like that the lyrics come way better for me and I can kind of relate to. So I do write about negative things. Like I tend to write, there's been a couple songs. There was a song Zero Span on the last album and then a song called The Solace on the new album about just things that I observed living in New York City. And one thing I know now that I observe now in New York City is that most everybody just stares at their phones while they're walking, and they don't kind of look around and enjoy life. And so
people are catching Pokemon recently.
That's it too. Yeah, when that came out, I was like, oh, that's exactly what the song The Solace is about. Yeah. Which, I mean, it's fine if people do that, but people run into me all the time, and it's like,
that's
you got to watch where you're going a little bit, and you got to look around and enjoy life. So I wrote the lyrics for The Solace about that, how it just seems like sometimes you can be so absorbed in your phone or in your computer that you're not enjoying life. And to me, it's a positive thing to think, we're only here for a short time. Let's just look around and enjoy it.
And would you say now, working on Howard Stern, I mean, you guys are just laughing nonstop, that it's kind of hard to put yourself in that like negative headspace to write dark lyrics, that laughing so much, it's like it can only be good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate. I have an awesome job that I love. I have an awesome wife. I live in New York City, which is an awesome city. I really don't have a lot to complain about, luckily. And I'm also in my 40s now. I'm not that, teenager that's, mad at my homework and stuff. So I don't know. I'm just a pretty positive person. And I like to think that when people listen to Charred Walls of the Damned, even though it's a very evil and scary sounding name, and we have that kind of scary horror vibe. It's actually a pretty positive band, and I just want people to listen to the music and have fun, bang their heads, and kind of take themselves out of the problems of the world for the short time that they're listening to our music.
Yeah, totally. It's always a positive experience listening to metal. Like I've
absolutely.
never ever listened to metal once in my life, and like it depressed me more, except for Shining, like Swedish black metal band. But
I was going to say
like,
that last Morbid Angel album depressed me pretty
but
hard.
that's for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, but Tim Young is a freaking awesome drummer.
Yeah, he's
a
really
machine.
talented.
He's
man.
insane. He's my buddy's roommate in L.A., my buddy
okay.
Jerry. And so whenever Tim's out on tour and I'm in L.A., I get to stay in Tim's room. So thank you, Tim, if you're listening.
You get to play. You get to play with each other's sticks. Horrible.
I leave
thing to
Tim's
say.
sticks alone.
That's a stupid thing to say. Bump sticks, rub sticks. I'm just gonna.
We sword
move on.
fight with our sticks.
I actually did an internship in the Sirius building all the way back in 2009. I did an internship for Opie and Anthony back when they were still together, and of course, so I kind of know a little bit about going in there so early in the morning and what a grind it really is. And it's almost like I feel like I know what it's like to have kids now, because it's like that kind of tired, where you just afterwards you get home and you just crash. You feel like you're dying. You're going home sometimes. So for you, how do you find the energy to be creative? Because when I was doing that stuff and getting there at 4:30 in the morning and staying till 11, I had no energy to even think.
It is hard with my schedule, but I'm being creative in ways that I'm doing stuff that I love, and it doesn't feel like work to me. I'm so lucky that I have a job that I love, and at night when I'm writing guitar riffs, I'm doing it because I love it. It doesn't feel like I'm having to force myself to do it. Mm-hmm. And also in the last 6 years, thanks to my wife, I've really gotten into running. I've started eating healthier. I lost about 50 pounds.
Yeah,
and
you're way better than when you started on Howard Stern.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, New York food will do that to you. When I moved to New York, I went nuts. I ate at every pizza place. I ate at every Italian restaurant. I was just going crazy. So,
How many Ray's pizzas did you eat at?
a lot of
Every race.
I never got to do the original one before it closed, unfortunately.
I don't even know which one that is.
They talk
now?
about it in the movie Elf. Like Santa Claus tells Will Ferrell where the original Ray's is.
Oh, where the original
yeah,
Ray's
but
is.
I think unfortunately it closed down a few years ago, the
Bummer.
original one. But yeah, so that's helped me a lot. Just have more energy. Eating right. I run after I get off work, and that helps me a lot. And I don't know. I'm pretty lucky that, and coffee helps. I'm drinking a coffee right now. I drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
So, I'm very passionate about all the things that I get to do. So I never really feel kind of being tired from it.
Yeah, I mean, I was another thing I was surprised about with the positivity of the lyrics is that I know that environment can be a very toxic place for some people, because you're going in there early, you're tired, you're over caffeinated. A lot of the time, when it comes to radio and everyone is perpetually on the air, anyone is looking to throw you under the bus, at any time, even though if it's all in good fun and all that stuff. Some people don't cope with it well. A lot of people will blow up, and people have heard that on the Stern Show. You've never really exploded, and that makes me curious, because I was just there for 4 months on Opie and Anthony, and I exploded at people constantly.
I got to credit my parents. They were really mellow, and I've always been a pretty mellow person. The only time I'll really explode on something is, which that sounded very dirty and sexual, but I'm not. I wasn't referring to that. I freak out on technology. I get so mad at my computer.
Okay, sure.
And I kind of take my aggressions out on my computer at home. I just go nuts with that, or if the cable's not working or something. But I've never been one to kind of freak out on other people. I just try to, I'm actually, my religion is dudist. I follow the teachings of the dude from Big Lebowski. And if something's going wrong, all you got to just say is, can I curse on here?
Yeah, you can curse.
Fuck it then.
Yeah.
That's what you say. Like the dude says to Lebowski, he's like, fuck it. Sometimes you just gotta say, oh, fuck it. And, that's life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going in for this Charred Walls album, you've got legendary musicians on this thing. I mean, Steve DiGiorgio,
who's played on just everything.
Everything is now, Testament, Death, everything. And
he's the man.
Phenomenal. You got Ripper Owens, obviously, he's the man. One of the few people who was able to really fill in for like a legendary singer in Rob Halford, and then Jason Sukoff as well, who's put his stamp on just about everything. And it makes me wonder, having worked with a legendary musician like Chuck Schuldiner in the past, do any of these guys remind you of Chuck in any certain way when you're in the studio with them or writing music with them?
Well, I mean, definitely, since Steve DiGiorgio was also in Death, we talk a lot about Chuck when we're hanging out and when we're jamming, and it's really inspiring that I still get to play with Steve after all these years. And I remember hearing him in Sadist back in the 80s, and then on the Human album, which is, like, to me, one of my all-time, it's maybe my favorite metal album of all time, but unfortunately the bass was pretty low in the mix. If you listen close, you can hear some, that he was insane what he was playing, but it's a little hard to hear. But then I know Chuck made it up to him with the next album, Individual Thought Patterns, because the bass is cranked on that album, and it's awesome, and it's so cool. I remember, I think Chuck called Steve like the Frog or something, because he would do these like ribbit type things on the bass that just sounded so freaking awesome. And so it's just such an honor to still be jamming with Steve and to be able to talk about Chuck with Steve. And Chuck taught me so much as a songwriter. I got to watch him put together riffs and see how he would put together songs. And also, I had never been around somebody that was so amazing at putting lyrics and vocal melodies to music. And so I learned so much from Chuck. And it's thanks to him and also John Schaefer from Iced Earth. He was an amazing songwriter. And just getting to be around those guys definitely influenced me and made me a better musician and a better songwriter.
Yeah, and another thing you were talking about is that when you were a kid, as a metalhead, you were getting bummed out because your friends started taking acid and started listening to like the Grateful Dead and stuff, and you're like,
I was like, screw that.
And it scared you away from taking it because you're like, I don't want to not like metal anymore.
You don't want to turn into a hippie. Like,
that's if people want to listen to Grateful Dead, that's fine, but it just wasn't for me. And that's what the lyrics for, there's a song called Lies on the new Charred Walls record, and that's what the lyrics are about. Just how I remember I was actually doing yard work at my grandma's house, and my two friends came by and they stuck out their tongues and they had little things of acid on their tongues, and I was like, it kind of freaked me out because in the early 90s growing up in Kansas, even marijuana was still really taboo.
Was it?
Okay. Yeah, it was super taboo. I remember I used to read Rip magazine every month. It was like the greatest magazine. I remember Sebastian Bach did an interview about how he loved to smoke pot. And I remember it's hard to believe now, but back then it was such a controversial interview for Sebastian Bach to be admitting that he loves to smoke pot. And it was just, at that time, seeing my friends doing acid, it kind of freaked me out. And also I knew my parents were really cool. I didn't want to disappoint them. They were fine with me drinking, but I didn't really want to go past that. But then about, a few weeks or a month after my friends had done that acid, they really started listening to a lot of Grateful Dead and non-metal music. And they kind of just totally got out of listening to metal. And that really brought it home for me that I don't want to take the chance of doing acid and not being into metal anymore.
Yeah, that's
so
not worth it.
I haven't smoked pot since like 92, and I just drink beer now. And, whatever anybody else wants to do is fine. But for me, I never wanted to take that chance of doing anything to alter my brain where it would damage that metal-loving part of my brain and make me start listening to, you know, Engelbert Humperdinck or something.
Well, there's your PSA.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get into rocker versus writer. Today, the rocker Richard Christie, the writer Loudwire's Joe DiVita, and today's the topic of which metal album would make the greatest horror movie. So, Richard, what do you think?
Definitely King Diamond's Them.
Oh, Them. Okay,
That
yeah.
I
yeah.
always thought, man, King Diamond should write a script to go along with that album because the story of Grandma and Missy and the house, and the video for Welcome Home, I think that's a perfect, you know, demo reel for a horror movie to take to a director and say, I want to turn this video into a full-length movie.
Yeah.
And the wheelchair and the tea and everything. There's so many cool aspects to that album. And, you know, if I win Powerball one day, I want to finance a horror movie directed by John Carpenter and starring King Diamond.
Now, if I win Powerball, I want to turn Abigail into a movie.
That too. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of King Diamond's albums. Like The Eye. I would love to see The Eye as a movie. I love that story. Whenever I go visit Salem around Halloween, I always listen to The Eye.
You have the headphones on, listening to that one walking around?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I'll listen to a little Eye of the Witch while I'm walking through that little cemetery in the middle of Salem. And it's funny, too. There's a cemetery in Queens that I always run to. And especially now that it's 67 days till Halloween, I'm counting the days. As it gets closer, I'll go to this cemetery and just every day when I run, listen to a different King Diamond album.
Oh, beautiful.
And like the Conspiracy album, At the Graves, is the perfect thing to listen to when you're jogging through a cemetery. So, but definitely any King Diamond album, and especially for me, the album Them, I think would be a perfect horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going with Abigail. You've got a dead baby eating its own other dead corpse at the bottom of the stairs after she has possessed some woman to throw her husband down the stairs. Mm-hmm. Possession everywhere. Lots of really gruesome stuff. I mean, venturing away from King Diamond, we've still got some pretty weird ones like Mastodon's Blood Mountain.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That one, for those who don't know, is about taking the crystal skull up to the top of Blood Mountain, and then once you do that, it will remove the reptilian brain, and then humans could advance on to the next step of evolution. And then there's all like the monsters, like the Sasquatch that could see into the future.
Sleeping Giant is also a monster.
Yeah, I love that album. I didn't know any of this, that this was the story of it. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, you gotta.
I gotta research into that a little.
It's a really great concept record. Like they get really trippy. Like, of course it sounds trippy, and you have like songs like Blade Catcher, which are just a complete, like, jumbles your brain.
It sounds like a VHS tape that you rewound and like something got like stuck and now it's just going crazy.
Yeah, it does.
Well, Braun is one of my favorite drummers ever. Too.
Yeah, everyone in Mastodon is one of my favorite musicians ever.
Me too.
Like, on that instrument. Yeah, Blood Mountain, and like.
Well, you could even throw in a little bit of Hall of the Mountain King in there too. Some Sabotage. That'd be a good movie.
That would be good too. Yeah, I think Mastodon, that might work. That might be like a Pan's Labyrinth type horror movie where it's like some weird adventure type thing. Like, you know, he's going with the crystal skull, but he's like encountering all these monsters and stuff on the way.
That album could actually get your friends from back home, all the deadheads, maybe back into metal.
You know, that's not a bad.
Go see a Mastodon movie. Like, yeah, take that, the wall.
Yeah, but they don't have any hair to bang their head anymore.
Not anymore.
Including me.
Brand doesn't have long hair. Bill doesn't have long hair.
I don't have long hair.
Yeah.
But hey, and one album that I would like to see into a horror movie is like a more recent one. The band Behemoth, The Satanist.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Just one of the most evil albums that's, I think, ever. And it's hard to out evil your predecessors, I think, because like it's almost like everything's been done. But with Behemoth, I mean, it's like, I don't think any prominent horror movie has ever done the satanic uprising of bringing about Armageddon with Christianity and Christian, preachers and stuff unable to do anything about it.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything like that.
There's a movie kind of like that called Day of the Beast. It's a Spanish movie that's freaking awesome. And it's made by a metalhead guy, and he's like wears Venom jackets and stuff, and it's pretty awesome. And then Lucio Fulci's Gates of Hell is kind of close to that.
Yeah,
it's a classic too.
I'm a big Coffin Joe fan.
Oh yeah,
that stuff is
from
incredible.
South America.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
That's great, and that's kind of like an anti-Christian movie in a bit, in the way that the main character is always questioning God and like daring him to strike him down and stuff like that. It was just so amazing.
Deathgasm was a good recent metal demon type movie.
Oh yeah, that one. I haven't seen that one yet.
I think
I gotta watch
that one.
And Nunslaughter is on the soundtrack, so you can't go wrong with Nunslaughter.
Yeah, totally. But
Raid the Convent.
Yeah, but just those lyrics in the Satanist, and also Behemoth's music videos. Have you ever watched Behemoth's music videos?
Oh yeah,
They like some of the most terrifying imagery I've ever seen, period. Like no matter like big budget horror, classic horror, like the gore stuff, like the stuff that they're putting out in those music videos is by far and away some of the most disturbing visual imagery I've ever seen.
And even though, we're kind of, I guess you could say, desensitized, I guess, in the United States with some
I suppose,
stuff.
yeah.
But I think that still in Poland and around where they're from, people still get really freaked out by them.
I'm sure.
I think they're still a very, very controversial band.
Oh, of course.
Even in Poland, yeah.
And I think what would be cool for that kind of film would be like maybe like a silent film for the Satanists where you just show all this really dark imagery, because like you said, we're desensitized, so you throw in dialogue and it's inevitably gonna sound kind of cheesy. So if you have just silent film, maybe even just the album as the soundtrack, like that punishing, devastating, just pure evil sound from that album matched with all that imagery, you don't have to worry about anything else. Like you're conveying everything that you need to say right there.
Well, you're giving away all your ideas. If somebody else goes and does this, they better give you credit.
What I'd really like to start seeing happen with the music video format is, do you know that Storm Corrosion project between Steven Wilson and Michael Ackerfeld? Very, very little percussion on the whole thing. Portnoy was supposed to be involved with it at some point, but then they took it in a different direction. So very cinematic music. And then they had this really cool music video for the song Drag Ropes. And kind of like these little... I don't even know how to describe the way the animation that they did everything, but the track was very loose because you don't have that percussion to really guide it, and then you watch everything that's happening and it's this full story. And I would love to see a band not just make a music video but make a conceptual visual piece to accompany the entire
whole album.
Like
so you get to watch long piece.
And you get to watch something start to finish, and as the music takes you through all the moods.
Man, speaking of these satanic movies, I keep getting all these reminders in my head of these classic satanic movies. Have you guys ever seen, I think it was called The Antichrist. It was a 70s movie, like an Exorcist type movie.
I haven't seen that.
There's a scene in it that it's the greatest scene ever, because in Merciful Fate, in the lyrics where it goes, "I will kiss the goat in the oath," which is one of my favorite songs ever. There's a scene where they back a goat up to a woman's face and she licks its bunghole. Like the satanic thing is going on, and
so that's a ritual apparently.
I guess there's some kind of ritual that involves a goat's butthole. But
all right.
That's
Grant,
a pretty crazy movie.
Now I gotta watch it.
I might be wrong, but I think it's called The Antichrist. And I think it's from the 70s. I remember I watched it at the old singer from my old band Public Assassin's house way back in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And if it's not, just Google goat woman butt lick.
Just Google woman licks goat's butt in satanic horror movie. And I'm sure not too much will come up except for that movie.
Except Faces of Death will come up, I'm sure.
Yeah, oh, God, those used to freak me out. That's what depressed me, is watching those things. Because I remember people would put them on at parties, and it's like, I don't want to see this at a party. I want to be happy and drink, I don't want to get all bummed out.
Another album I'd like to see turned into a movie would be Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare.
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
Well, he's
that
in
was-
one of my favorite horror movies, Prince of Darkness.
Oh, you didn't consider Wayne's World a horror movie?
We're not worthy.
Yeah.
I love Wayne's World.
But that album's great because like you've got Alice doing the voice of kind of like the adult self, and then Steven with the child, and he's kind of that inner conflict back and forth. And like you've got songs like Cold Ethel. I was at an Alice Cooper show, and I saw like a nuclear family sitting in front of me, like husband, wife, son, daughter, all there for Alice Cooper, and the kids who like couldn't have even been teenagers were singing the lyrics to Cold Ethel.
Wow.
And if anybody doesn't know what Cold Ethel's about, it's about a stiff corpse and carnal relations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's the best way you could put it.
Yeah. So you've got this nice family sitting there, but they're singing about having sex with dead people.
Yeah.
And
You just completely
why not
ruined
turn that
your
into a movie
euphemism.
now?
But yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And so I mean, I
That's
just
a cool
want to
family.
Or there's no way they know. Or they probably haven't even like heard into it. They probably just listened to Poison once and were like, let's go see Alice Cooper.
That could be. I don't know. You don't really know all the lyrics to like the fourth or fifth song on an album unless you're.
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
I
Pretty good-
don't know
pretty good
those
fan.
lyrics.
Yeah, I wouldn't know that one. Good for those kids though.
Yeah, I get.
Good for those kids.
Good for the kids. We'll see.
Yeah.
I think any Cannibal Corpse album too would be a great.
Yeah,
horror
I
film.
mean, just a straight gore.
Yeah, I would go
fest,
see a movie called Hammer Smashed Face, or
Yeah.
Addicted to Vaginal Skin.
That second
You haven't
one I
seen
would
that one
see,
yet?
absolutely. I've seen that one in like the dark places of the internet. That's a bad one. But like, it's weird because I know you're a huge horror movie fan, and when I was thinking up, this whole what best metal album would make the best horror movie thing, I really couldn't think of any movie where Christianity doesn't win in the end in terms of exorcism movies, like the demon possession movies or the ghost movies. It's always seemingly Christianity that comes through in the end that's able to defeat the demons or the bad spirits or whatever. And when it comes to the Satanists, the whole thing is just one gigantic ode to Satan and bringing upon the apocalypse. And at the very end, the Satanist is chanting up at Satan to come join, the devastation that he's seen. So that's kind of one thing I would like to see, a movie where at the very end, it's like the Christians can't do anything about this.
To be powerless.
Yeah, to be
Yeah.
totally powerless. Even in Fright Night, it's like the cross only worked when he had faith.
Yeah.
Right? So even just he knows that, and in vampire movies too, every vampire movie, it's always like the cross, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like when you have faith, and then the vampire goes away. So like for that not to work, I think would be a terrifying notion to a lot of people in real life.
Yeah.
For a lot of the reasons that people were so freaked out by The Exorcist when it came out, because a lot of people, if you're religious, you think, okay, that can actually happen. Mm-hmm. So
I would give anything to go back to 1973 and have seen that at that time.
God,
when movies like that would truly freak out a whole audience.
Yeah, it's true.
I miss those days.
Not even a whole audience, a whole society.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Night of the Living Dead's up there too. The one that really disturbed people and I
Yeah.
think changed children. Like when they watched it, my parents talk about watching that one, and they're just like, we were never the same.
Wow. Well, I love that you can go on YouTube and watch. There's a video of an audience watching John Carpenter's Halloween in like 1979.
Oh, wow.
And it's just mostly the audio, but you just hear the whole audience screaming, and it sounds so cool. It's like, oh, I want to go relive that, which, I'm pretty lucky. I'm a little older, so in the 80s, I got to see a lot of horror movies when they came out, and I remember screaming, and I remember people freaking out, like Friday the 13th Part 4 and stuff like that. But, it's a good movie. Have you seen, well, I mentioned it before, but at the end of John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness, the son of Satan starts pulling Satan's hand out of the mirror. And to me, it's one of the most shocking and cool scenes of all time. And, you know, like you said, Christianity wins in the end because they defeat Satan. The woman jumps into the mirror and brings Satan back into the other world. But, man, that point where Satan's son is like pulling that huge red hand, like demon hand out of the mirror, it is so cool and scary looking. And I always wondered, I wish they could have got to that point where they brought all of Satan out. I wanted to see what he looked like.
If only. But it always comes down to like that one cross or that one holy character who's able to stop it with faith.
This woman was able to stop Satan by jumping, you know, into this mirror and taking him back into the other dimension. And she became this kind of Jesus type figure they show at the end of the movie.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I suppose that's a miracle. To stop Satan from coming through a mirror by jumping into it.
Although if I was her, I would have just kicked Satan and kicked him back in the mirror. She grabs Satan's son and Satan and jumps into the mirror with
Satan's
them.
Son too. That's
and
smart.
She gets, you know, trapped inside this mirror. And I would have just like, you know, kicked Satan's son in the ass and just push him in there and still lived.
Yeah, so maybe not too bright, but still a martyr, I suppose. All right, well, that's Rocker versus Writer. Please let us know what you think would be the best horror movie based on a metal album in the comment section.
All right, and Richard, one thing that I like is awesome for me just sitting down here next to you is your drumming is so embedded into my early metal years.
Thank you.
Sound of Perseverance was the first death metal album I ever got into.
Oh, wow.
I had one of my cousins, then fiancés, handed me 4 albums. It was Carcass's Heartwork, Neurosis Times of Grace, Botch, I can't remember the name of the album, and then Sound of Perseverance.
Wow.
So up until then, it was kind of like a lot of like Iron Maiden, Halloween, and then those melodies and harmonies translated on Sound of Perseverance, and then your drumming is just insane. And everything I heard in death metal after that, like that's what I measured it against. Was, you know, all right, well, where's the drumming? Like, all right, well, yeah, it's not as good as Sound of Perseverance. And then like Ice Earth's Horror Show too was another like huge one for me growing up. So it's,
I'm blushing. Well, thank you so much.
And just want to say like about Sound of Perseverance, what was it like trying to construct all of those parts? Because I mean, it seems like sometimes there's just everyone in the band is just off doing their own thing.
It does. It kind of reminds me of Jaco Pastorius did an album where nobody listened to the other person playing and they all played different parts.
Oh, I didn't know he did that.
Yeah, wow. I didn't know. I actually didn't know that either until the documentary about him that came out. Yeah, the Robert Trujillo did, which was awesome. But it's funny you say that because I remember going into the studio the very first day that Chuck and I went to Morrisound. Chuck played the guitar and I played the drums along with him. And I remember Jim Morris looking at us and just shaking his head and going, what the heck is going on here? I got to tell you guys, I don't know what this is. He was like, it kind of boggled his mind, but he loved it. And he was so funny about it. And we were like, okay, we're doing something right here, you know. But we were so lucky because I joined Death in summer of 97. We recorded Sound of Perseverance in April of 98, I think. So we had a lot of time to rehearse, and we used to practice almost every day. So we just had a lot of time to really work on the songs, to get them tight. We didn't use a metronome or anything in the studio, which I think helps contribute to that really kind of chaotic sound and feel that the album has. Chuck played guitar along with me while I recorded the drums. So these days, a lot of times drummers will play along to a click track, and a guitar track that was already recorded or something. So it was cool that we, back then we recorded on 2-inch tape. So it has a very raw and live feel, which I love. And it was just so much fun to write those drum parts because Chuck, he would just play a riff and say, just do something crazy to that. And he was very, very open to letting me do whatever I wanted. And at the time I was like 22 or 23. And I was at that age where I just want people to hear my crazy drumming. I wanted to impress people because I spent so many hours practicing. I wanted to put so much drums into every little bit of space that I could, which I was probably overplaying quite a bit, but it definitely worked for that kind of music. And I'm so honored that people still listen to that album, and that, you know, like you said, that you love the drumming on it.
I think it was very ballsy opening up the album the way you did with just that huge drum fill, because it's like Death at this point is already a pretty legendary band, already putting out amazing records. Again, we've talked about this a lot of time.
It's kind of like, where do you go from here?
A band that's never put out anything but great material. And you come out and immediately like, I'm taking over this thing. Like, well, maybe not taking over, but I'm here and check out what I can do, and just a huge fill, and immediately you're like, damn, like I'm down with this guy.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
You know what it was too is Sean Reinert and Gene Hoglan are such a massive influence on me as a drummer. You know, they helped make me the drummer that I am, because I practiced along to human individual thought patterns, symbolic so much that they're such a big influence on me. I wanted to do something that really honored them and showed people that, hey, I love them as drummers too, and I want to continue their great legacy, because I think when I came in, nobody had heard of me, and they were like, is he gonna measure up to these guys? And I just wanted to let people know, hey, you know, I want to come in and really honor these guys by playing drums that are just crazy.
Yeah.
No, and you play in the Control Denied album too. And what's going on with this second one? We've been hearing about this for like over 10 years now. Legal disputes. Do you have any update that you can give us on the second one?
Unfortunately, I don't. I hope it still comes out. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen with it. It's just, I remember recording the drums for it back in December of 2000, and it was so much fun to play that album. It's an incredible album, and
Yeah.
I remember hearing Chuck's guitars. Chuck recorded his guitars for it as well, and I remember rehearsing that album and Chuck writing the songs, and there's one song on there where the chorus of it, there's really no time signature to it, and it's one of the craziest things that we had ever played. And I remember when Chuck wrote it, and he told me on the drums, he said, don't even do a time signature, just slow down then speed up, and just let's see where it goes.
Wow.
And it ended up being one of the craziest things when we heard it back, and we just laughed because it was so out there. And I hope people get to hear that, because it's just, I know Chuck was so proud of the songs, and it's an amazing album. So hopefully it'll happen. I think it will eventually. It's just taking so much time, like you said, with the legal things and different record labels and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. If we could talk Stern for a second, I would like to know, you've been, it's so weird. I was thinking about this today. You've been at the Stern Show for 12 years now. Mm-hmm. Absolutely incredible. And there's been so many legendary moments, so much fun listening over the years. I mean, when you look back on it, what's some of your favorite moments? What are the moments that pop out to you like immediately when you think of your years?
There's so many. I mean, when my parents were on at K-Rock, that was awesome. They were so nice to fly my parents to New York, and just to get to show them New York and everything. That's probably definitely one of the highlights. And, and getting to kind of be a little bit of an ambassador of metal on there.
Very true.
Getting to, once in a while, they'll play a Death or something like that going into a commercial, and
you busted out the drums there before too.
To play drums on there was awesome.
I saw you with the Death shirt, and this is like right around when I got into Sound of Perseverance, like we just mentioned, and I was still in my own like little bubble. You don't know other people listen to this type of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, that guy's got a Death shirt. I didn't even know that, you actually played on the album that I loved. I was like, oh, he knows about this band too. And I was like ecstatic when I saw it.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome. I get emails once in a while of people that make the connection that didn't know that it's the same Richard Christie that's on the Stern Show that played drums in Death. And that's always cool when people kind of make that connection. And it's a weird thing that I went from, being a death metal drummer living in a storage unit to being on the greatest radio show of all time in New York City. So it's pretty cool to when people make that connection.
Yeah. What do you think is the hardest that you've ever laughed in that studio?
Oh, there's been so many times. I don't know. It's hard to say. There's just been, every day I'm dying laughing there. So, just, I don't know. It's probably some of the crazy stunts that we've done, but I can't just pick one spot out there where I laugh the hardest. I'm just always laughing there.
I'm trying to remember that one name that Sal came up with on like on a prank call that had you laugh so hard that you pissed your pants.
Oh,
what was that?
It was probably the first name Gabe and the last name Athhouse.
Gabe Athhouse, right?
And we got a radio, another radio show to say the name.
There have been so many great
We got an item
names.
on sale from Gabe Athhouse.
Joe's dying laughing right now.
It's just that's my sense of humor.
It was like the southern like Christian radio things too.
Yeah.
Oh,
the God Bless for segment that went on for like 5 minutes. Oh my God, that's one of the things I've laughed the hardest at.
It terrorized those. It just. And that's, if you don't know, that's where Charred Walls of the Damned came from. That's one of those shows.
Yeah, we pissed off a Christian radio show, and the guy said we'd be scratching our nails on the charred walls of the damned.
Oh, God.
You think you'd be surprised to find out that your album's actually pretty positive?
He probably would be. He probably doesn't ever want to hear from me again, whoever named that band.
What was it? Oh, God. What was it like meeting that Jonah Falcon guy? Was that a funny thing?
I didn't meet him because he wasn't a big fan of us, so we stayed away from him.
You stayed away from him?
Yeah, I didn't want to bother
If there's
the guy.
one guy that you really terrorized and like broke his head, it was just him. Just every time.
Graham, fill the listeners in on who Jonah Falcon is,
Jonah
if you don't
Falcon
mind.
is the world record holder for the largest penis in the world. I think it's like 13 and a half on a cold day. And
He's the guy that every other guy in the world is jealous of.
a little bit. And then he had some public access show like Talking Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'd be like, hey, I'd like to talk about A-Rod. He goes, okay, what's your question? How big's your penis? And he would freak out.
Yeah, who wanted to talk about the Yankees when you could just talk about his 13-inch member? That was the most interesting thing about him.
Oh, God. That's funny that they were like, look, just don't come near this guy. We don't know.
We just wanted to leave him alone. We harassed him enough on his public access show.
Yeah, he's one of the guys who, like, broke every single time. He would just not afraid to just absolutely lose it on public access.
If you're listening,
TV,
Mr. Falcon, I apologize.
And then he went talking Xbox.
Yeah.
And then you guys pranked him with just asking about the Yankees.
And they did Pokemon one time,
They
too.
did, ooh.
Yeah.
They did Pokemon.
He was talking about Pokemon, and we talked about the Yankees. He got me.
God, just, I think Artie Lang called it ball busting at level red. And it was absolutely just, I feel so happy that I was able to hear those calls in real time, because I feel like this is like what fans of the Jerky Boys must have felt like when that came out. Just like knowing that you were out.
I remember being on tour in 1993 or maybe 92 and hearing the Jerky Boys on a cassette for the first time. It was actually a bootleg cassette before I think their first album had come out.
Yeah.
And we wore the cassette out. It was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, you just knew that it was something really special.
Absolutely. I went opening day to the Jerky Boys movie when it came out in 1994. And I still freaking love that movie. Yeah. And the best thing, though, even better than their movie, was they did a home video for MTV in like 95, and you got to see what all their characters looked like Jack Torres and Frank Rizzo and Saul Rosenberg, but they were silhouettes of the characters, and it was so freaking funny.
Wow.
It was awesome.
That's great. So we're running out of time, but to finish this thing off, we would love to get, what's one thing that people don't know about Chuck Schuldiner, like a little thing about him, like something that people would be fascinated by?
I mean, I know Gene has talked about it in interviews before, but I don't know if a lot of people know Chuck was an amazing cook.
I think I have heard that.
Yeah, he was great. But you know something actually I don't think people know is Chuck used to brew his own beer. And he made some of the best beer that I've ever had in my life.
Seriously?
Yeah, he would make
beer?
it in his house. I think it was like a pale ale or something.
Okay.
But I remember trying it, and I was like, Chuck, this is incredible. You got to, market this. It was awesome. And, Chuck was, he's just one of the most humble and amazing people I've ever met. He was always excited to talk to the fans. And always, first and foremost, he was a metal fan himself, and he always was a huge metal fan. We used to just go after practice to his house, and he would cook, and we'd have his homemade beer, and we'd listen to vinyl. We'd listen to like Sortilege from France, or a Halloween album on vinyl, or a Vandenberg album. He had this amazing vinyl collection, and he just always was a fan, first and foremost, as big as he became and as legendary as he became. He always was seeking out new music, too. I remember when the first Children of Bodom album came out, he freaked on it. He loved it.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I think it was 1998 or maybe 97.
I think it was 97.
It was probably 97. I remember him listening to that for the first time and just freaking out. He loved it. So that was really cool as well. And he was just, I think about him every day. I miss him so much, and he was just, I'm so lucky that I got to know him and got to be in a band with him. And he had the best sense of humor ever too. He loved like the Jerky Boys.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, we used to love watching this movie, Rock and Roll Nightmare, starring Thor on tour.
Thor? Oh, jeez.
Wait, like
my God.
that Thor?
Yeah, that Thor, the Canadian Thor. We used to watch
Thor.
that every night because the bass player from Benediction had it on VHS.
Oh, wow.
And it was the greatest movie ever. And you know what, too? Chuck loved the holidays, and we used to drive around looking at Christmas lights. And I remember when we were on tour in 98 with Hammerfall, we decorated the whole bus with Christmas lights, and we would watch Christmas Vacation almost every night with Hammerfall. And it was
God.
It was awesome. It was so much fun, that tour.
So to like your Halloween, Christmas was like that to him.
Yeah, well, he loved Halloween too, but he was just he was kind of like me, just a kind of a festive person, and loved, he was the most important thing in his life was his family, and he loved being with his family. I think that's a lot of the reason he loved like the holidays as well, because everybody's around their family. And so, he was definitely just a regular down-to-earth guy who happened to be one of the greatest musicians and songwriters of all time.
Yeah, 100%. Richard, we want to thank you so much for dropping by and spending some time with us, man. We so appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Such big fans. Again, Charred Walls of the Damned, Creatures Watching Over the Dead, September 23rd. Pick that thing up. Some legendary musicians on that. Great songs. Richard Christie, everybody.
Thank you. And you can go to metalblade.com/CWOTD to pre-order the album. And you can check out the song The Soulless if you look it up on YouTube.
All right, do it.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
For Rocker versus Writer, I was certain when he said King Diamond that he was going to say Abigail.
Oh my God, I was hoping that he wasn't, and then as soon as he said King Diamond, I was like, great, now I got to come up with something else. I mean, there's still plenty to choose from, but to me, Abigail is by far the top choice for making an album into a horror movie.
Yeah, I know you had your heart set on arguing that one, so you got to do it. And, actually, we didn't even think about them, really. And so that was a great choice, and I really enjoyed that conversation. Awesome talking horror movies with Richard Christie. Probably like the biggest fan of Halloween, both the movie and the holiday, pretty much on planet Earth.
Yeah, I mean, that's how he comes across with pretty much everything that he does. He's just such a fun-loving guy. And I mean, like we said, he's laughing all day. It's like, what could you be mad about? You just laughed and got paid for it for like 8 hours.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're a fan of the Howard Stern Show, you have seen every single staff member on that show snap and freak out on the air because everyone's being thrown under the bus. Everyone's always
just getting ripped to shreds. They just demoralize them completely.
Everyone's always potential fodder. And, you know, like me doing my internship at Opie and Anthony, like I got destroyed on that show a couple times.
By Jim Norton.
Oh, I love little Jimmy Norton. Oh, I miss that show, man. I wish they were still together, but hey, what can you do? Howard Stern is still here. Richard Christie was here. Man, I had such a great time with him. Again, one of the greatest metal drummers. I mean, Sound of Perseverance by Death. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people don't know about his Burning Inside band either. It's this cool amalgamation of like Atheist, Pestilence, a lot of that Sound of Perseverance style in there too. So if you haven't heard that one, definitely check out those 2 albums.
yeah, check out those albums. Check out the new Charred Walls of the Damned, Creatures Watching Over the Dead. This has been the Loudwire Podcast. My name's Graham. You can follow me on Twitter at GrahamWire.
And I'm Joe, and I don't have a Twitter, but you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, just not home.
Yes, and please go to loudwire.com for all your daily rock and metal news. We're going to go play some duking.
Let's do it.
See ya.